All right, guys, so this is a build that is not meant to really push like past tier 15. It can, but it's mostly meant to farm your Glyph XP, and I think that 15 is the sweet spot where things are still relatively easy enough for you to kill, but you also get tons of XP when you complete it. And then this will help you get to the build that I'm going to publish here in a couple days, probably about how to push up higher. I finally given up on my damage reduction from injured and snapshotting mentality, so we're gonna go through that. But before we get to the actual build, I'm gonna show you guys real quick how you do the snapshotting for the build. Most of you probably already know this, but for anybody who doesn't, this just lets you have two key passives and an aspect on that you actually don't have on, which is, if Blizzard had an issue with this, they would have patched it in this morning's patch or yesterday's patch, which I'll put up on the screen here. They've already stated that they know about this and they would have fixed it, but they've vowed to not really mess with anything this season. And that's why the rogue pants still works. So they consider this to be a legitimate way to play. And then next season, this will be patched. But anyway, let me show you guys how you do this. All right, so first things first, before you would port into a dungeon, I'm gonna show you guys this from the dummy training area. But what you would do is before you actually go into the Abattoir of Zir, you have an amulet with Mage Lords on. And then you want to make sure you have the actual passive on. And then you go into the area. Okay, so we're zoned into the area now. I've set it up to have the 3 dummies here. We have Veer's Mastery on. So what you want to do is you want to get up on them so you have the damage reduction increased. And then you want to take this off and put this on while you still have the damage reduction increase. And then once you come over here, you put this on. Now you still get the damage reduction when you go near them. And also Veer's Mastery will still count for like the critical strike damage and stuff, from my understanding, increasing your the amount of damage that the enemy does. So essentially you just get this for free while also getting the overflowing energy. So it's pretty easy to do. I'll go ahead and show you guys real quick how I go into Abattoir of Zir and get this change done. It's actually super simple. All right, so I want to go ahead and say this. I do not use the Domination Vampiric Power, but yes, you would do more damage with it. But there is a bug currently that if you get stunned while injured, you instantly die, the same way you kill non-elite enemies. So I just don't use it because this build is meant to just be like, I go on autopilot and all I'm trying to do is get my Glyph to level 50. Pretty simple, right? But with that being said, let's get into the build itself. Mage Lord's on the amulet to do the part where you like snapshot in. It doesn't really matter what's on the amulet, obviously, just like a higher roll of Mage Lords is good. We're going to go to the helmet now. Of course, we're using Shaco. I honestly think you might be able to get away with this if you have better damage reduction while injured rolls than me. Because my rolls are really low. So you could probably negate that damage reduction, but I don't know. Well, that's debatable. Raiment of the Infinite, of course, for the pulling part. Once we get over to the abilities, I'll explain more about the switching part of the key passive and all that. I have Inner Calm on my gauntlets for when I am sitting still, but you could probably do better with something like Retribution. But this build is eventually going to push higher tiers, so it's meant to, like, you're going to be sitting still a lot, right? So that deal 9% increased damage for each second you stand still. Well, when your ball lightnings are spinning and you're on an opponent, then you're sitting still. So Ever Living on the pants, since Major Lords is here and we're doing the whole glitch bug snapshotty thing. So we put Ever Living on the pants, and we have total armor, damage reduction while injured, and +4 ranks of ball lightning. The +4 ranks of ball lightning is super important. That actually adds a ton of damage. This is the only thing I have damage reduction while injured on with a decent roll at 38%. You'll see that the rest of them are pretty bad. Exploiters on the boots, movement speed, my damage reduction while injured is 31% instead of, it's 6% above minimum. Mana cost reduction, which would probably be, I think Flame Shield would probably be better, but I like my mana cost reduction. So, and then 4 ranks of teleport. Okay, the dagger, we got all stats, intelligence, mastery skill damage to close. You could probably get away with like vulnerable damage instead of one of the like mastery skills or damage to close, and that'd be perfectly fine. I have gravitational on here. Of course, all the offensive aspects can go on anything you want. I'm pretty sure everybody knows that. We have conceded on the focus, which my critical strike chance is like mid-rolled on here, but I finally got a 925. Critical strike chance, mana cost reduction, resource generation, cooldown reduction. Unfortunately, cooldown reduction is minimal rolled, but what are you going to do? Talrasha's Ring, of course, every build uses it because you get 4 stacks on there. On the ring, we got Storm Swell with crit chance, damage to close, max life, resource generation. And then the amulet, the one that we use all the time, has Devouring Blaze, mastery skill, damage reduction while injured, which is even lower than the boots at 27%, and then total armor. And I don't remember if I said it, but Disobedience has the aspect. We're going to go to Vampiric Power. So you can do a thing where instead of Infection, you run Domination. And what you can do is you can go in with Infection on, get the Talrasha proc, and then switch it out. But like I said, this right here will make it where if you are injured and you get stunned, you will instantly die. So I just choose not to use it because I'm trying to just mindlessly farm. But Infection, and then we have a Cursed Touch to pair with Peril on the Weak to make enemies vulnerable. Resilience, of course, and then Ravenous, also, of course. Resilience is super important. Some people don't run it, but it's like the best damage reduction while injured because it also works if you're not injured. But anyway, and then Ravenous is where a bunch of your damage comes from. Over to the skill tree. Well, when you start with Veer's Mastery, of course, and then you switch over to Overflowing Energy. All right, over to the skill tree. It doesn't matter where you put the points up here because if you are running a Shaco, then you'll have points in a Firebolt anyway for the enchantment slot. If you don't, if you're trying to do this, like I was saying a second ago, without Shaco, then you obviously win at least 1 point in Firebolt. We go down, put 3 in Elemental Dominance. We have no points in the Glass Cannon because we don't want to take more damage than we have to, and the build farms perfectly fine. I assume when we get to the higher level pushes, I'm going to have to get gear with more damage reduction while injured on it, and then we'll put points in the Glass Cannon to do more damage. But for this build is a farming build, so this is perfectly fine. We got 1 into Elemental Attunement just to reset our defensive skills. All right, so you can kind of put these 2 points wherever you want. I put 1 in each. But I have 1 point into Ice Armor, 1 point into Flame Shield. Putting more points in the Flame Shield is good because it makes your shield last longer. But when you're putting like 1 or 2 points in there, it's negligible. You need to like brute force a lot of points to make a difference. And then of course I got 1 point into Teleport over to Shimmering Teleport for damage reduction when you teleport, which is like super useful. A lot of damage reduction in this build comes from the fact that you're spamming Teleport. We got 1 point into Ice Blades to get over to Summoned Ice Blades, and then of course we got Protection and Mana Shield. Conjuration Mastery because we have switched our enchantment slot, and our enchantment slot, by the way, is Ice Blades and Firebolt. I'm not a fan of using Ice Blades at the moment. I know that it reduces my cooldowns and stuff, but I feel like this needs to be something else if you really want to do a lot of damage. But I'll figure that out later. Let's go back here. We got 3 in that Icy Veil to give ourselves barrier, or make our barriers last longer. And then, of course, Invigorating Conduit. This is where most of our resource generation comes from. Because with Wizard's Ball Lightning, the way that this works is since you're in the higher tiers of Abattoir, the bolts will hit the enemy multiple times to start spawning crackling energy. And that's pretty much the only way that this build gets tons of mana. We're trying this out here where you go up to Frigid Breeze since our Ice Blades is a cold skill and it might proc to give us mana. Unstable Currents, and then down to Prime Unstable Currents. This might be better now that I'm using the Overflowing Energy, but I just don't have it, and it seems to be perfectly fine. And then, of course, we were talking about the switch down here. All right, over to the Paragon board, we have Elementalists in the starter board. We go through here, we grab this Resistance to all elements, and we grab this over here for life, so we want to get both. We don't have to get any more of these Resistance to all elements because we max out. I grabbed this point here for my willpower. Same thing with up here. It's better to leave this way since you don't use strength as a sorcerer, but I need willpower, and this has 2 willpower, so that's why you see me doing that. But if your all stats is a good roll on your dagger, then you should be fine. Come over here, grab this non-physical damage. And we come up here. This is the same as pretty much all of my other builds. This is where Tears of Blood is at. I think mine is level 33. So we grab everything we can in there. Come up here, grab this damage reduction from elites. All right, now over here, after Burning Instinct, we have Reinforcement, of course, and Enchantment Master. Everybody runs that. We don't grab any of this stuff over here. Unfortunately, I would like to, but I want to have an extra board. So, then we come up here. We've got Adept and Frigid Fate, of course, grabbing Frigid Fate, which we're only at 19%. That's why I would have liked to grab the other, this non-physical damage here, but this build works fine enough the way it is. And we just have just enough to get Adept to the additional bonus. Then we come over this way to, what is this one? Elemental Summoner. This is a new one for me. just to grab the max mana stuff up here, and we have one extra node in this max life because I had one left over. And then we have Flame Feeder in here. We come up here and we grab the extra. You don't need these to meet that minimum requirement, but I didn't have anywhere to put a bunch of nodes at the end of this, so we kind of just like grabbed a little bit extra damage. Come up through here, we have Destruction into Ceaseless Conduit, and we grab all the dexterity we can, except for this one here. And then lastly, we got Control in, what is this one? Searing Heat. Also grabbing an extra one because we can, so it was like one right here. Control, you could, if you find yourself dying still for some reason, I don't have much of an issue with this, but if you do find yourself dying, you could probably trade one of these out for Territorial. Get a little bit of extra, I would not do Control, but a little bit of extra damage reduction from close. In case you guys do not know, so Raymond of the Infinite, when it pulls people in, is super important for the builds, right? So when it lags you, like I'll show you guys here, when it lags you because you're hitting too many enemies, the best thing you can do is when you pull a bunch of enemies together, you want to like dash to the side and then go back into it and try to kill the little guys and leave nothing but the elites there and then just sit there on them. That's pretty much the best way to go about this build. And then this stuns as well. The teleport, when it pulls them in, it stuns. It doesn't just pull, so that's why you have Control over here, because you'll do 20% increased damage to them for that 2.5 seconds while they're stunned. And with the overflowing energy, you are constantly resetting your teleport's cooldown. So you'll essentially just always be teleporting and pulling them in and stunning them. And then when they turn unstoppable, like they do in Abattoir, then the exploiter will let you do more damage to them. See, you can actually snapshot exploiters. I don't know if you can snapshot intercom, which it doesn't really matter because the cap doesn't increase. It just increases like, you know, it'll go up to like 18% if this was on a two-handed weapon, but it'll still cap at 30, so it's not super important. But I do know exploiters works on the snapshot if you guys wanted to do the extra effort. I don't, but you could. But besides that, I think we're done here. I don't think there's anything else to show. This build is strictly just to farm XP at tier 14 or 15, right? Like I do a lot of 14s just because I'm trying to do them as quick as possible. It can do 15 easy, but if I knock off like 30, 40 seconds, I can do things faster, right? Also, I can zone out more because they're not doing as much damage. Because the way this build works is you rotate your defensive skills to have a barrier, and as long as you have a barrier and you're injured and you always keep your barrier up, you just don't die for the most part, right? So you have a bunch of cooldown stuff, so you're just kind of cycling through them, and the overflowing energy resets your teleport constantly. So, and that's a defensive skill, so then when you use it, you get barrier from, what is it? I think it's protection, right? Yeah, protection. So using a cooldown grants you barrier, and you have damage reduction with a barrier, plus the natural reduction you get from having a barrier, I think. So you just pretty much don't die. Unless you just take like a massive hit, which is why you have a bunch of damage reduction while injured, because if you keep your health at 30%, you have so much damage reduction while injured, and if you had good rolls, you could get over 100%. But anyway, thank you guys for watching. Here in a couple days, I'll probably upload an actual like build that's meant to push. It'll probably involve a tier 50 glyph, which is pretty much why I'm putting this video out, so that people can see it. If they want to do this, they can get their glyph to 50, and it won't take very long at all. Like since I switched to this, I've gone from like 25 to 33 in like 2 hours at most, and that's just like dicking around and dying and testing stuff. I've just found this build to work pretty good. But anyway, I appreciate anybody who watched, and everybody have a good rest of your day.